Hey, and welcome to The Solid Verbal. Now would be a perfect time to consider subscribing. Yeah, that little subscribe button for year-round premium college football content. That's it. Here's the video. Enjoy. Subscribe.
Oklahoma's been the story of the offseason in many respects. Not only did they lose Lincoln Riley to USC, but Brent Venables comes home. There's been activity in the transfer portal. This is a program that, at least as many Oklahoma fans tell it or would like to have us believe, it's on the right track. It's building momentum. It may take on a little bit of a different face going into 22, right? I think that's inevitable, but they feel okay about it. And there is this quality to many Oklahoma fans, scorned Oklahoma fans, who would also try to have you believe that they're better off without Lincoln Riley, which I find comical, frankly. I don't know if that's a good approach. I don't know if that's where I stand on things, but new coach, new quarterback, new system pretty much all together. Oklahoma within your stepbrother's universe, how does it fit?
So, great question. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to choose to move beyond Lincoln Riley with my evaluation and appraisal of Oklahoma football. And Oklahoma's in an interesting place, obviously, for obvious reasons, but there's another tie that binds these teams. And if it's between Kansas State replacing what they have to replace on the inside of the offensive line, Oklahoma trying to get back to just a decent place on the offensive line, Oklahoma State replacing West Virginia and the sacks they allowed last year, Kansas has a ways to go. We have like this propensity between the quarterbacks and the offensive line issues to see a lot of these guys kind of scrambling and trying to do things on their own. And so there is that part of me that says, I don't know, I could see Spencer Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Adrian Martinez, JT Daniels, maybe to a lesser extent with his physical abilities, trying to go rogue.
Yeah, hero ball.
Yeah. In the case of Spencer Sanders in Oklahoma State, maybe more McGruber. Like, guys, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to do, and then everything explodes. We're talking Oklahoma. Dylan Gabriel needs to stay in one piece. He is not the biggest dude. He needs to stay intact behind an offensive line that has some work ahead of it. I don't think the run game is going to be as big a threat as it's been the last few years under Lincoln Riley. I think Eric Gray is fine. He doesn't scare me in the way that Samaje Perine or Joe Mixon or the guys that have really, been able to shine under the previous regime were able to do. So that to me is worrisome about the offense in the short term. But yeah, the encouragement is, the receivers it's not deep. It's not crazy killer, but we get a healthy Theo Wees, Marvin Mims, Drake Stoops, and we'll see. The defense worries me. The defense in terms of the alley-oop, that is worrisome. That is, I can't make this all about stepbrothers. I can try, and I'll hit some.
58th, by the way, 58th in defensive SP plus ranking last season. It was a pretty good year, all things considered, for Oklahoma. They went 11-2, 7-2 in conference.
Yeah.
Down the stretch, had the loss against Baylor on the road, had the loss
Bedlam,
at Oklahoma State in the Bedlam game. Bedlam game was a close game. Ended up winning the bowl game. Bob Stoops at the helm. A mid-turnover. Lincoln Riley was already out of Dodge. But, good season, all things considered, had some quarterback strife. Yeah. I'm curious from your standpoint. I'll let you finish on what you're going to mention there with Oklahoma, but I am curious as to the setting. If we're keeping this in terms of movies, I'm curious the games that jump out to you for Oklahoma as really being like sort of those key pivot points in the season.
Essentially, it's hosting Kansas State, which I think they do so pretty early on. It might be after the Nebraska game. That to me will at least dictate, as you like to say, we'll know what Oklahoma is by December. As you like to. We'll know what they are. But what I want to know is what are they going to be early on in September, a few weeks in. That to me is my curiosity point. We know that, the Red River game is going to be huge and always is with all the new pieces on both sides. But in terms of this side of the conference, that's the game I'm most interested in because Oklahoma as a program hasn't been traditionally beating Kansas State lately. And so that would be a nice signal to me that they're locked in on everything new, that Dylan Gabriel, because look, if you're a team beating Kansas State, like maybe I'm too high on them. We started our preview season with Kansas State. You might be pretty good. And so that to me is at least an early tell for Oklahoma. and that's the one I selected in terms of the setting and plot points for this Oklahoma season among these teams.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oklahoma. Oklahoma's schedule, if we want to keep things kind of on that level.
Yep.
Oklahoma's schedule is interesting. You mentioned the K-State game. We'll find out at the end of September where they stand against other competition, better competition in the Big 12. But it's not exactly an easy slate by any stretch of the imagination. I like their home slate. Their home slate's good. They have to play all the same good teams in the Big 12, but the way that this sets up, it's not the easiest, but it could be harder based on their road tilt. They've got the Texas neutral site game, which we all know about. They got to go to Iowa State, which hasn't always worked out for many teams in the Big 12. But other than that, their only other big road games here at TCU, at West Virginia, possible sandwich game in between Baylor and Oklahoma State. And then they close out the season against tricky Texas Tech, which we'll talk about on our next episode. That could be an interesting matchup. I'm pretty high on Tech. But all things considered, you could do worse if you're Oklahoma. I like the fact that there's a little bit of a ramp-up period at the beginning of the season with UTEP and Kent State before they go on the road to Lincoln, Nebraska, before they come back home to square off against K-State.
My counter is we've never known less about whether or not a team's schedule is hard or easy because of all the movement in the sport, but also especially as it has to do with the Big 12 with the differing pieces and I think generally high floor of 9 of 10 of these teams that you can talk me into 35-31 somebody most weeks and have it make sense. So I don't know if Oklahoma's schedule is hard. I have no idea if Kansas State's schedule is tough. You can look at it and say, look, they've got a bunch of road games against what we perceive to be good teams in a row. Sure, absolutely. But anybody who claims to know a good amount about where these Big 12 teams, especially on my side, stand with, Oklahoma State losing what they do on defense, Oklahoma losing everything, Kansas State making a change to a wild card quarterback, West Virginia going to what we thought might have been a Heisman leading quarterback going into last year at Georgia and not working out. Like, nobody knows anything. And it's more pronounced this year.
Do you like the Dylan Gabriel, Jeff Lebby, Brent Venables pairing?
Yes, absolutely. I
you feel
absolutely
good about that?
Dylan Gabriel coming in with, when you come in and have the immediate success that Dylan Gabriel had at UCF, and granted, I know it's the American, whatever. It's a different animal in the Big 12 or whatever major conference. But he performed largely pretty well against the higher level competition that he faced. And there was a fearlessness to Dylan Gabriel. And so if these receivers work out, if the offensive line is okay, you go up a little in your voice, it's okay. I think they're going to have a good amount of success because of how aggressive Jeff Lebby's offense tends to be. That situationally, Dylan Gabriel, again, if he stays in one piece, there's a fearlessness to his game, going downfield, going across the middle, where I'm just like, I'd be very much more into having Dylan Gabriel at Oregon than Bo Nix.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, that's where I stand. I mean, he was almost at UCLA, of course. So
okay.
I think that's where I stand on Oklahoma.